You're listening to The Jake Asman Show on the Sports Map Radio Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Jake Asman.
Held in by Pellick, left point for Barzell. Cutting to the high slot. Finds Mayfield going to the net. Shoot! He scores! Scotty Mayfield roasted! And the Islanders have tied the game at 2 with under 9 minutes remaining in regulation.
Chris King on Hofstra Radio, Islanders Radio. Islanders tied the game up at 2. They would go to overtime, and it was Anthony Beauvillier with the game-winning goal. So the Islanders survive. They force a Game 7, which will be tomorrow night in Tampa Bay. And now joining us on the Progressive guest line to talk all things Islanders and Lightning is the television voice of the New York Islanders on MSG Network, also calls games for NBC Sports. The great Brendan Burke is with us here on the Jake Asman Show. Brendan, thanks so much for the time, my friend. I hope all is well.
All is good, man. It's a good time to be a hockey fan and good time to be in Islanders country these days.
No doubt. So, Brendan, if that ends up being, and of course, as a diehard Islanders fan, I'm not thinking that way, but if that ends up being the final ever game at the Nassau Coliseum, can you think of a better way for that building to go out?
No. I mean, I think that you always want your last game to be a win, right? And very few teams get to do that and have their last game of the season be a win. And obviously, if that was the last game, their last game won't be a win, but the last game at the Coliseum would be. And to have it means so much, right? It means a potential trip to the Stanley Cup final for the first time since 1984. And to come back from down 2-0 and tie it in the third period and win it in overtime. No, it was a pretty special night. It was going to be a special night either way, but the way it all unfolded made it even that much better.
Brendan, when the team was down 2-0, were you like me thinking, man, they might be done. This team might be cooked?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you just looked at it and not even in the context of the game, but just they had surrendered 12 consecutive goals in the series, right? They gave up 2 in the third period in Game 4. They got outscored 8-0 in Game 5, and then we're down 2-0 in Game 6. So Tampa had scored 12 straight goals. And to sit there and think with less than half a hockey game to play that after giving up 12 consecutive goals, the Islanders were going to score the next 3, it just seemed unlikely. And against a team as good as Tampa, right? Like Tampa doesn't blow leads in the third period. And I wouldn't say they blew a lead. They just gave up a goal, and the Islanders, kind of stepped it up a notch. But it seemed hard to think that was going to be an Islanders win last night after going down 2-0. But to their credit, they do what they've done all year long and what they've done for the last 3 years under Barry Trotz, and that is stay the course and continue to play their game, and good things will happen. They didn't start forcing it. They didn't start gambling. That goal by Jordan Eberle was monumentally important just because of how quick it made it back to a 2-1 game. The crowd started to slip a little bit. They were down 2-0. I think, as you mentioned, I think everybody in the building started to feel like that might have been it. Like that was the chance. Now we're down 2-0, and I don't know if we can do this. But that goal by Jordan Eberle kind of energized the crowd and energized the bench, and it turned the game right back around into a 1-goal contest. So not having to have that emotion of being down 2-0 linger for more than a minute and a half or a minute and 40 seconds, that was crucial to getting that game turned around.
I couldn't agree more. And, I was just going to bring up the Eberle goal because, not only does it get them right back in the game, you get the crowd into it, but for him personally, he had gone 6 straight games without a goal, and he only had 1 in his past 12 playoff games. So the Islanders, he's on that first line with Matt Barzell. They need him to score. So just getting him going, Brendan, I mean, how significant is that for the Islanders going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, listen, the injury to Anders Lee in March, and he's done for the season and he's not coming back, changed the makeup of this team significantly. And yes, they lost their leading goal scorer. Yes, they lost their captain and their emotional leader and their leader in the locker room. But just looking at it, small picture, they lost their left winger on a line with Matt Barzell and Jordan Eberle. He is a very important piece of that line. And so really ever since March, I think it was 7th when Anders Lee went down, they have been searching to somehow get that line going at the same level. And they really haven't found that. And Jordan Eberle has been the one that has really dropped off in all of this. Matt Barzell is a different type of player and can make some things happen by himself. But Eberle's a guy that needs some help. He needs a guy to set him up. He needs he needs to be able to get his shot off. And he hasn't been able to do that. And so, they haven't really been able to get that line clicking. people make fun of Leo Komarov being, quote, your top line left winger. And I get that, but it's not about the production or the play of Leo Komarov. It's about the way Barzal and Eberle play because of Leo Komarov on that line. He is the closest thing to providing everything except for the goal scoring that Anders Lee provided to that line. They tried a number of different things. They rearranged a number of different lines trying to get that line working after the Anders Lee injury. None of it worked as well as when Leo Komarov played on that line. So that's what they stuck with. And so, hopefully, if Jordan Eberle can start to feel a little confident and feel good going into Game 7, and that line can continue to build off of that, that could be a good thing for the Islanders moving forward.
Brendan Burke with us here. He's the television voice of the Islanders on MSG, also calls games for NBC Sports. I mean, Brendan, when you're calling that Game 5, and of course, every Islander fan is like, yes, we got Brendan Burke on the game. He's calling it, and the team gets killed 8-0. I mean, what is going through your mind as you're calling that game the other night?
You know what? Listen, to me, like as much as I'm the Islanders guy. Like I was the national guy that night,
yep.
And so it's a different feeling. It's a different game. I'm in a different role. So listen, if you've ever called play of a hockey game, it doesn't matter if it's your team getting scored 8-0 on or it's your team winning 8-0. Those games are not exactly the most fun or easy to broadcast. It's just not good hockey, right? So, that was the biggest struggle, is trying to keep that game entertaining. When really, I guess, unless you're a glutton for punishment one way or the other, it was hard to do that. So, it was tough, but I was excited. I mean, listen, personally, I just got to do Game 5 of a Stanley Cup semifinal. And in my career, in my broadcast career, that is the most important game that I've ever done. So it was a really cool moment for me. And, the final score didn't change that fact for me. It was a lot of fun to be able to get down there and be in that environment.
I saw you already put out on your Twitter that you promised not to call Game 7. A lot of Islander fans getting on you, Brendan, making sure that you're not the quote unquote jinx for this team.
Oh man, they turned on me quick. It was pregame. It was, yes, we've got Brendan Burke and we're going to win by 100. And then after the game, it was like, don't you dare step foot in the arena again. I didn't. Last night, I watched from my couch last night. I sent my wife. I sent my wife to the game.
Wow.
Let her experience it, and I stayed home with the kids and watched it on the couch. So I guess I deserve credit for staying out of the building to make sure they won last night.
There you go. So speaking of the building, Brendan, obviously, anyone that's from Long Island that's grown up going to the Nassau Coliseum, you've always would hear, if you're a younger fan like I am, how loud it would be, that the building will shake like it used to back in the 80s. And we got glimpses of it, over the last couple years. But this year, with how good the team's been, some of the wins they've had there, I mean, what have been your thoughts calling these games, being in the building for a lot of these games, and just how loud and just the environment that the Coliseum produces for a hockey game?
No, it's special. I mean, listen, the reason why it is being replaced, and the Islanders are really excited and should be about their new permanent home at Belmont Park, which will have 17,000 seats in it and have all the modern amenities that the Coliseum lacks. But the reason why the Coliseum needs to be replaced is also the reason why it's such a special place to watch a game. It is small. It is compact. It doesn't even feel like an NHL arena. Like, it doesn't. There's no upper deck. Like, it's just a very small, intimate arena. 13,900 seats, all packed in around the ice. The ceiling is less than 100 feet from the ice surface. It's just a very small, intimate place, which makes it special. And so you understand why this building can't exist in the modern day National Hockey League. So this is a very unique opportunity. And you're right. We've heard for years, boy, you should have been here in 83 or 82 and got to experience this building in all its glory. And now I'm hearing from fans that were there and be like, yeah, this is it. Like, last night was as close as you're going to get to what it was like being in that building in the early 80s. And so, the Islanders fans, and trust me, it's not the Islanders fans alone. So many fans. I mean, I feel bad for Tampa fans. They got robbed last year, right? You had this incredible run to Game 6 of the Stanley Cup semifinal. It was the Eastern Conference Final last year. And they had to watch it from thousands of miles away, and the players were playing in an empty building. Tampa won a Stanley Cup without any fans, and their fans got gypped out of that entire experience. So the Islanders could have had it last year, didn't get it. The start of the playoffs, it was only half full. Then it creeped up. It went to 9,000, and then it got to 10,000, and then it's not a full. I think it's 12 and a half now out of the 13.9 that they could have, but it doesn't feel like it's not full. when you're in that building for sure.
Anthony Beauvillier after the game said, going into overtime, the building smelled like cigarettes. Now it smells like beers. Brendan, is there a better quote you think to sum up the type of atmosphere that is the Nassau Coliseum than that?
No, probably not. I mean, it's a unique place, like I said, and Islander fans are a unique fan base, and they take pride in that. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what he was smelling or where it was coming from, but certainly you understand that last night. And listen, the beer can thing is unfortunate. It's a bad look. The only thing I can say to I guess help people understand what's going on, the entire building lost their mind. Like they didn't know what to do. Like they didn't know what to do. Some of them had towels. They threw those. They didn't make them on the ice. Some of them had beer cans in their hand and they just launched them. Like they didn't know how to react to what they had just seen. So, the players took it in stride. Luckily, nobody got hurt and it wasn't a dangerous situation. But, the Islander fans, they didn't know what else to do.
I'm totally with you. Eddie Olczyk on the broadcast made it sound like every Islander fan that threw an empty beer bottle should be like tarred and feathered, Brendan. And I know you're not going to say anything bad about Eddie O. I get it, but I'm just like, come on, man. Let the Coliseum go nuts. This is something that most Islander fans like under the age of 35 have never seen before. As far as Game 7 now, Brendan, looking ahead tomorrow night, what are the keys for the Islanders to win? What is the key for Tampa to bounce back and of course win on home ice?
For the Islanders, I think that they're built on playing the same way. Like they're successful when they play their game, and so as long as they do, for me, they got to get the first goal because. And granted, I know this goes against some of the stats. They were actually out. I think they gave up the first goal in 5 of the 6 games against Boston and still won that series in 6 games. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But the Islanders want to dictate play. They want to be able to play Islander hockey, and you can't do that when you're chasing the game, at least not as well as they'd like to. So I think the first goal will be critical for the Islanders, especially in Tampa, right? If Tampa gets that first goal, if it's early, if it's in the first period, that building can get going and they start to feel good about themselves. It can build, especially when you're on the road. You don't want that to build and you don't want to get down 1-0 because then the next one, you're really in trouble. So I think getting that first goal will be critical for the Islanders. For Tampa, I mean, not to overstate it, but losing Nikita Kucherov potentially for Game 7, it changes a lot for them. He's a dynamic player, and you look at he's got more assists than anyone in the Stanley Cup playoffs has points. That's how much he's been setting up goals. And so, yes, Braden Point scores every night, but Braden Point usually plays with Nikita Kucherov. Their power play was at a ridiculous number. It was at 40% at the start of the series. It's in the 30s still. But Nikita Kucherov's a big part of that. So their power play looks different. Their top line looks different. So many things look different when you're playing Nikita Kucherov or not playing him. So if they don't have a 100% healthy or even any percent Nikita Kucherov in their lineup for Game 7, a huge loss for Tampa and something that could at least make them look a little bit different, a little more human, right? The team without Nikita Kucherov finished 3rd in the Central Division this year. The team with Nikita Kucherov in the postseason has been lights out. So I don't think it's overstating how important he is to their success.
Finally, Brendan, is it fair to say your days at Ithaca College calling Cortica Jug games helped you, get ready, helped you, feel prepared for calling big-time playoff games at the Old Barn?
I only got one Cortica Jug, and it was in Cortland, and they lost. So maybe that's why I'm a jinx for Islander fans, but I don't know. No, it's always good. Everybody has their own Cortica Jug experience, and mine was always either doing a halftime show at the radio station or doing the play-by-play. So I was always ready to go. But Ithaca certainly prepared me for what I'm doing now.
No doubt. Brendan, appreciate the time, man. Love seeing you succeed. It was surreal seeing you call that game the other night for NBC. Keep up the great work. Every Ithaca alum roots for you, and every Islander fan, of course, is a huge fan of yours. So thanks so much for coming on.
All right. Thanks, Jake. Anytime.
Brendan Burke with us there, the play-by-play voice of the Islanders on the MSG Network, and, of course, calls games for NBC Sports. He joined us there on our Progressive guest line. Drivers who save with Progressive save over $750 on average. We will take a quick break. Be right back. Jake Asman with you here on a Thursday. This is the Jake Asman Show on Sports Map Radio.
Hey, sports fans, Jake